I learned today that it is possible to be overly fond of another person's feet. Now, I did not know that this was a thing. And I also didn't know that you might be frowned upon for having those thoughts. Seems to me like it's none of anybody's business what thoughts you're having, but anyway. Fact is, I'm rather outspoken about my adoration of weevil feet. And I wonder if that could be problematic. Arlen thinks it could be very problematic, and he urged me to come clean about it. So I'm a little embarrassed now as I know it's a thing. But boy, have I got some hot-looking feet to show you in this episode. Yes, indeed, they're real scorchers. This video is going to be an important video for anybody who likes macro, who thinks that one day they may want to use a 10x objective. Because I'm going to compare two rigs that I recommend all the time, almost on a daily basis. One of them is a very affordable 10x infinity objective lens. The other is a fairly expensive one, not by any means the most expensive, but an expensive and an inexpensive option. And I'm going to compare them as a set, as I recommend them usually to be bought. The first is the expensive one. I'm going to look at the Mitutoyo M-Plan 10x objective using the ITL 200 Thor Labs relay lens. Then for the second set, which is the Nikon CFI Plan 10x Infinity objective, I'm going to use the $60 Raynox DCR 150 as the relay lens. So I'm going to get the best I can out of both of these objectives. And hopefully, at the end of this, I will be able to point to why you want to get this one or this one. We're going to end up having to consider the cost. There's just no way around it, because I think that there are some trade-offs, but there's a big difference in price, a big difference, $500, $1,300, something like that, if you can get one. They're hard to find these days. So it's $2,000, $260,000. So $260,000, I'll sell it to you for $260,000. $260, 2,000 and something dollars. So let's compare them. Let me say a quick word about Patreon and about my Patreon supporters. You've heard me thank them in every video for the last 3 years. Well, now I'm going to be doing more than thanking them, and I am going to be giving them the extra attention that they have certainly earned. You're going to still get the full evaluation of these lenses, all the results, everything that you want to see to make a good decision. The folks over at Patreon are going to get this, plus a lot of behind the scenes stuff, as well as all the details of the testing. I'm going to go through all of that over on Patreon. It's a premium content thing. I'm going to be doing a lot more premium content, as well as we have live stream events that are going to be scheduled every month. They get a special video, just an update for Patreon every week, and a whole bunch of other things that are long overdue and well earned. So thank you to my Patreon supporters, and from this point forth, I'll be showing that gratitude. And for the rest of you, if you're interested, if you want to know more about it, come on over and take a look and see what we've got. And if you want to talk to some Patreon people and find out whether they're getting their money's worth out of being over there and supporting the program, go over to Discord. There's an invitation in the show notes, and you can ask them. They'll tell you. I'm going to start out with the CFI plan. This is an achromatic corrected infinity objective. It has correction in the red and blue wavelengths, not in the yellow. So this is a much less expensive lens than the apochromatic Mitutoyo. It also has a smaller numeric aperture, it's 0.25, whereas the Mitutoyo is 0.28. So it's a faster lens, the Mitutoyo is. Let me tell you about the two setups for the Nikon objective and the Raynox. I'm using the Raynox in the forward orientation at 210 millimeters. The infinity space is 30 millimeters for that. For the Mitutoyo, I'm using a long infinity space of 75 millimeters. And even though it's a 200 millimeter lens, I have the spacing between the sensor and the relay lens at 245 millimeters. And if you want to know why so far and how I decided on that distance, that's in the behind the scenes video over on the Patreon channel. But I go into all of that and I show you how I set up these rigs at the various distances. Also in the bonus material is some absolutely cannot live without information on how to pose weevils. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. That's a big deal. Shall we get back to work? What I want to know about this lens is taking into account the price, the availability, relative to the Mitutoyo, for most ordinary human beings, a considerably more affordable lens. Is this noticeably worse than the Mitutoyo? And if it is it how much worse? $600 worse? Because that is really the question that you need to answer. Earlier on, I quoted the price of the 10x as being about $1,300. It's not nearly that much. It's about $900, and you can usually get it a little cheaper than that. This is $250, but you can almost always get it for about $200. I got this one fairly recently at Microscope Central for $225, brand new. I'm using 4 Godox MF12 flashes on super low settings. The Mitutoyo has an effective aperture of about 16, f16, whereas this objective has an effective aperture of f20. So it's not going to get as much light in, so I may have to adjust the light a little bit. I'll use the best light to get the best test shot, and we'll go with that. Because another thing, the working distance on the Nikon is 10 millimeters, which is pretty standard for a infinity corrected 10x objective. It's parfocal at, I think it's a 60 millimeter parfocal length. And that makes a big difference in terms of lighting. You've got to get the light in a lot closer. But what I'm going to do is do the best I can to make them both shine. What I'm using is, I found a teeny tiny weevil in with my adult weevils, and it's a greenish color. It's a different weevil, so it'll be fun to look at. And we're going to photograph this thing, and between shots, I'm not going to adjust it. I am going to start out with an eye shot. These things have pretty eyes, so I'm going to get a good eye shot lined up. Okay, so you can, right off the bat, you can see this is a nice sharp lens. This is the Nikon, remember. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. I oftentimes don't care for that perspective of looking up, but the eye is in such good position. And the antenna too, coming out of the groove in the face. By the way, I think I'm going to use another flash as well. I'm going to use a Godox V860-2, and I'm just going to use it in optical S1. My settings right now are 16th, 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 and 8th. And I am going to use a diffuser for every shot because I want them to be pretty. I'm using a double layer of tracing paper, my old standby. See how it softened the light just putting it down there? Something moved while I was doing that, so let's pull that back. Let's lock. Yeah, that's what it was. double check at the last minute. Check all your bellows stuff is tight, and you'd be amazed what moves during this process. Okay, it's the eye we're going for, so that'll be good. Probably should put a card in. Be right back. Okay, new card in, clean. Using mirror up mode, using the stack shot, auto distance, distance per step. I usually go about 9 microns. I'm going to go 7. Find the start position. So with a light on so I can see what I'm doing, I'll bring the carriage back until the first closest part is out of focus. Hit the down button and then go forward until I'm through my subject, and I'll go about there. That's back to the thorax, that's plenty. And I'll hit down. Now it's ready to start. What I'm going to do is make sure my framing is where I want it. I'm going to do a test shot for exposure. So let me do it without the backlight first. Okay, that's actually pretty good for this objective. It's normally pretty dark. Let me make sure this is working. It is. Let me position this. And I'm perfectly happy with the exposure. Okay, I'm shooting at 1/250th of a second, which is the sync speed. Exposure looks fine to me. What I'll do then is turn off the light, turn off live view, turn out the lights, and be very, very still. Make sure that make sure the first 2 are in focus. And we're good from that point on. Now I'm going to leave so I don't vibrate anything. We got 129 shots. See you in a minute. Does it feel to you like I've been gone for a long time? It feels to me like I've been gone for a long time. All right, so let me tell you what transpired. The tube lens is cleaned and mounted in a homemade adapter because I was setting this up with the lens in reverse. That means the big end, the fat end, is facing back towards the camera. This isn't my lens. This ITL 200 is a loaner lens from Captain Glenn Martinez in Hawaii, who also was the very kind Patreon subscriber who loaned me the 10x objective from Mitutoyo. So he's really been a massive help to me and the channel. Great help. Great guy. If you ever need aquaponics in your garden, speak to him. He's the aquaponics man. If ever there was one, it's him.
I got my style. I got my style. And it's all
So let's have a look at the photographs. There is probably more to be learned by looking at the photographs that I've taken since I did the comparison. And let me explain what I mean by that. In an attempt to keep everything equitable in this comparison, I tried to use much the same shooting conditions for each of the objectives, and the result was, of course, that I was using lighting I had to use with the Nikon because of its short working distance, and then I was imposing that restricted lighting on the Mitutoyo images. and the result is that the Mitutoyo images weren't really that good, but they still proved the point. And the point being, quite simply, that an apochromatic objective on an apochromatic relay lens is going to beat an achromatic objective on an achromatic relay lens every day of the week. Plain and simple. The image quality is not really even comparable. The Nikon shows evidence of significant chromatic aberration in many, if not all, of the shots. The images are overall slightly softer, and it was really fairly consistent right across the board. So I don't think there's any point in going through them individually. Now, when I get together with the Patreon group, we're probably going to discuss these images in a little bit more detail and go through them then. But for right now, I don't see any point in belaboring the issue. But I do want to show you some photographs that I have taken since the comparison that show, I think, a lot more of what this objective is capable of. I'm talking now about the Mitutoyo 10x with the ITL 200 tube lens. All of these images that you're seeing now were shot with that combination of lenses. I photographed two very difficult subjects. One of them was a minute little fly that I could only really see under the microscope. And this is the image, and the detail is jaw-dropping. The same goes for this not very good photograph of a mosquito. If you've ever seen a mosquito up close, you know that their antennae are just a mass of tiny, fine hairs. And they are just about impossible to photograph with any kind of separation or definition. Imagine my surprise when I saw this photograph. I mean, these individual hairs are absolutely amazing. The last thing I want to show you is just a common leafhopper, actually a couple of them, that are so brought to life by this objective and tube lens combination. It's really hard for me to get my head around. It looks almost like a painting compared to a normal photograph of one of these things. It just has no end to the detail. It's as far as the eye can see. So my opinion is hardly surprising. The Mitutoyo 10x apochromatic infinity corrected microscope objective is a phenomenal, outstanding camera lens. And when it's paired with the Thorlabs / Nikon ITL 200 relay lens, it is pretty much hard to beat. Let us not lose sight of the fact that this is $1,400 worth of glass and metal. So is the Nikon worth the $250 you'll spend on it? And what about the Raynox DCR 150? Yes, they're both well worth it. They are about as perfect an entry-level infinity corrected microscope objective as you're going to find. It's affordable. It takes fantastic pictures. You're getting about as good an achromatic infinity corrected microscope objective as you're ever going to find. So yes, it's definitely worth the money. Is it as good as the Mitutoyo ITL 200 combination? Not even close. And what did we learn? Well, when we look at the pictures, there are some good ones and there are some not so good ones. Remember, we're not photographing a test pattern or an alignment slide. We're photographing insects. And some of them are in better shape than others. When you're photographing this fast and furious, you don't spend quite as much time preparing your specimens as maybe you should. So some of the subjects weren't really great to shoot. There was another rule that I tried to follow, and this was just to make everything make more sense as far as being apples to apples. And that was I didn't want to change the lighting. So what I would do was set up my lighting for the Nikon and then use the same lighting for the ITL and Mitutoyo. The problem with that is you're not really using the same lighting because the Nikon lens has only 10.5 millimeters of room between the objective and the subject. That's not a lot of room for the lights, so I tended to be using my lights from the sides, from the bottom and from the top, but from the sides. The result was that it wasn't exactly how I would like to have lit some of the subjects, and seeing as I couldn't change the lighting, it also wasn't how I would light them with the Mitutoyo. So the end result was there were a lot of not very good or not very representative photographs in the batch, which is bothersome. But there was enough information in the images and enough good photographs to tell that we had a really unfair match, and so unfair, in fact, that you're probably kind of wondering why I would bother comparing the two. Well, I think there's a lot that goes into answering that question, because if you want to know which lens resolves better, what the sharpest lens is, which has the fewest chromatic aberrations, then set it up on a lab bench and do the necessary tests, and you'll get your answer. And we know what the answer is. We're comparing apples to oranges here, but there's a reason for that. And the reason is 5 times as expensive. And that's a good reason. This lens, this cute little tube lens, is $509 today from Thor Labs. Up until recently, you used to be able to buy these things on the internet for about $150, $160. They would show up on eBay all the time, and some of them were very good. In fact, there were a couple of sellers that were very reliable, but they're gone, or I can't find them. I've looked everywhere. You cannot find an ITL 200 on eBay today. And I have a feeling that when you do, they're probably going to be a lot closer to that 500 mark than they are 200, but I don't know for a fact. Let's assume for the moment that the only way you can get one of these is by going to Thor Labs and buying one. By the way, did you know that this 200mm tube lens from Thor Labs is actually a Nikon lens? The ITL 200 is almost certainly a rebranded Nikon tube lens made for use with their APO lenses, because this actually is an apochromatic lens. So it shouldn't come as any huge surprise that an apochromatic tube lens used with an apochromatic objective that we know to be razor sharp outperforms an achromatic microscope objective with a $60 tube lens. It shouldn't surprise us. But does that mean that the $60 tube lens and the $200 Nikon achromatic objective are a waste of money or not worth owning? And that's kind of the point of this whole thing. The answer is categorically no. That's not the case. The best lens, or the better lens of the two, in both cases, the objective and the tube lens, is demonstrably the Mitutoyo M-Plan 10x objective and the Thor Labs ITL 200. There's no question about it. But there's not that much in it. And that's the point. I asked a couple of friends to take a look at a representative selection of these pictures. Just 6 of them, 3 sets of 2 of the same subject, same lighting, same everything. In all cases, 2 out of the 3 were picked correctly. These 3 here are the Mitutoyo ones. These 3 are the Nikons. And when we look at them individually, the one that confused people, the one that was the Nikon image that got mistaken for the Mitutoyo, was probably one of the better Nikon images and definitely one of the worst Mitutoyo images I took out of the whole thing. And I'm going to blame the lighting, because I had the lighting really crowded in on the subject, and it just wasn't a good photograph. But most of the others, I don't think anybody would have mistaken. And I've since taken a lot more images for examples, and I'm going to put some of those over on my website, and they'll crop up from time to time because we'll be talking about this again. So, which is the better lens? The Mitutoyo is the better objective of the two, no question. And the ITL 200 is the better tube lens. In fact, it's probably as good a tube lens as I've ever seen. Is the Nikon and the Raynox a good alternative? It's a very good alternative. I've been using that Nikon lens for years, and I like it. You learn to shoot with it so that you minimize the risk of getting a lot of chromatic aberration, but you do that with any lens. So if you're thinking that your options are $2,000 worth of Mitutoyo and Thorlabs, or just not get a 10x objective, I would disagree. I would say, no, that's not the right way to think about it. If you cannot afford $2,000 for the expensive setup, then there is an alternative that is almost as good. And for all intents and purposes, it's just as good. If you're not sitting there comparing the two, you're going to think that the Nikon is a very, very good lens, because it is. That's why I recommend it. I recommend these two are the only two 10x objectives that I recommend when people ask. I ask, how much money do you want to spend? The very best you can get is the Mitutoyo. The very second best and most affordable by a factor of 5 is the Nikon. So there is going to be some discussion about this. Next weekend, I am going to do another live stream. And this one is going to be to discuss this video and discuss the findings of this video. And I'll put the images up on my website so you can go look at them and come prepared to have a discussion about what's important in image quality in extreme macro. You're going to be able to read about how any objective is way better than all the rest of them. If you look hard enough, you'll find so much confusing information out there. Maybe it would be a good idea for us as a macro community to look at the whole question of quality in extreme macro. What does it mean, and how does that translate into the equipment we use? What do we really need? Or what are we getting for other reasons? I have equipment that I got so that I could say I had it. That's embarrassing to say, but I did. Maybe we ought to take a look at that kind of thing and see if we can't make it a little bit easier for new people that are coming along to know what really makes sense. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting conversation. That'll be next week. I'll announce that over on the Patreon channel. Actually, I'll tell you what. I have been trying to move towards having a one-stop place to deal with messages to you. And probably the easiest way for me to do that is Discord. So I am going to make an impassioned plea to all of my Patreon supporters and everybody that watches the videos. If you have any interest in any of the extracurricular stuff that we do, please go and join Discord. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a way that when I send out a message over on Discord, I know that everybody who's interested is getting it. If you're not on Discord, you won't get it. And you can set it up to where you don't have to go over there. You can just set your phone up to where if I send out a message to everybody, it'll ding your phone and you'll know what the message is. I hope you'll do that. That's everybody. Whether you're on Patreon or not, do join the Discord server. There's nothing in it for me except knowing that I can catch you guys wherever you are, and it's a great place to go to talk about photography. In the last couple of weeks, I have set up a whole bunch of new meeting rooms. They call them channels. There's a channel over there where you can go show your photographs. You can go help other people understand their photographs. We talk about equipment. There's even a place over there, a double top secret private channel just for the Patreon peeps who want to go over there and be snobs. I set that channel up just for you. So go over and look at it. At least go look at it, for crying out loud. What else? Website, my website. There'll be pictures from this video, and most of the time I'll post pictures and an article to go along with videos. So check that out. Put it on your bookmark list. When you're over on Discord, there's also a suggestions channel, which is like a suggestions box shaped like a channel. Go in there, write it down, whatever it is. If you want me to change the stuff on my bookshelf, write it in there. If the video you want to watch or something you want to see, write it in there. I am going to teach you guys how to do stereo extreme macro photography. When? As soon as I learn how. I got a call from Mr. Littlefield the other day who asked if I was familiar or did any stereo photography. And I said, no, I didn't. I didn't do that because it looked too difficult. So he would have none of that. And he sent me some magic spectacles, which look, I must say, fantastic on me. Really. I would never have thought that thick, square, black plastic glasses would look this good on me. This right here, these pictures here, this is the sucky part of a blowfly's tongue. Yeah, we'll call it that for now. It's the pseudotrachea here on the edges, and then these things are capillary tubes. It doesn't look like much there. But when you put on these glasses and you look at this, those brown things are coming up at your face. So I had so much fun. I couldn't stop grinning and laughing out loud looking at these things because I just wasn't expecting how much fun it was. And imagine how exciting it was to discover that I already have what I need to take these pictures. I have Zerine. Zerine Stacker takes these pictures, and I'm going to become one of the world's leading experts in doing that tomorrow or the next day, and then I'll teach you how to do it, and we will have some serious fun doing it. In fact, don't rule out having a competition just about this, the best stereo picture. You know about the competition? There's a competition every month. Where do you find out about it? Over on Discord. Go over there. It's a competition and there might be a prize. For example, somebody might win a pair of magic spectacles, and then you can look pretty hot too, like me. The place to go to get all of the bonus stuff, the behind the scenes, all of that is over on Patreon. I will see you over there, and I'll see you in Discord, and I'll see you in just a few days with a studio equipment product review video. Several reviews in one. Good stuff. Don't want to miss it. All right, I'm going to go practice my stereo photography, and I will see you again soon. Take care. Be safe.